Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talent Community Podcast. I am your host today, Yasar Ahmad, Community Manager at the Talent Community and Global Vice President at HelloFresh. The Talent Community is the go-to space for over 14,000 leaders, HR innovators, and talent strategists who want to stay ahead of the curve. If you want to join the Talent Community, you can join by going to www.thetalentcommunity.net. Now, speaking of innovators, every once in a while, you meet someone in your career who just leaves a lasting impact. The kind of leader who doesn't just do the job, but transforms the way the organizations think, grow, and quite frankly, survive, essentially in this ever-changing world. So today's guest is one of those people, someone I've had the privilege of working with, someone who's led massive global teams, driven transformation at scale. Despite being at the top of his game, he remains one of the most humble and insightful minds in the industry. He's the Chief Talent Officer at Wipro, where he's responsible for the talent strategy of over 240,000 associates across 66 countries. So no pressure. From leading people strategy in Europe to AI-driven upskilling initiatives, he's seen it all. But more than that, he's mastered the art of leadership. And today we get to pick his brain. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, the one, the only, Deepak Parija. Welcome. How are you?
Wonderful. A pleasure to be here, Yasar. Thank you for inviting me. And lovely to see you, all fresh and nice and smart as you always do, looking like, but pleasure to be here.
Well, that's a massive compliment coming from you. I've always said you've been a big role model for me. A lot of people won't know this. Deepak and I worked at Wipro, and he was my boss's boss's boss. He was the man I would go to and ask, and he'd be my problem solver. So I'm really excited for this. I want to jump straight into it, Deepak. Managing talent for 240 plus thousand people across 66 countries. Honestly, it sounds terrifying. What's your secret sauce for keeping it all together while ensuring meaningful impact? How do you keep your cool? You've always been that kind of cool person.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. But look, frankly, to me, it just comes naturally. I think it's absolutely important in all of this. And then I may sound theoretical around it. But the reality of it is that, just be your own self. The best part about managing talent, and you called out, it's really about people, right? As much as you understand people in the way that they come across, it's an easy thing. Well, I mean, it may, I'm sort of making it easy, but that's the reality. It is essentially about understanding every individual exactly in the way that they are, and being able to respond to that in their own sphere, right? That's sort of, at the core of it, right? And, there is a whole bunch that may get encompassed within that, but, to me, it's really about respect. It's just about respect for people, is respect for the capabilities and, what they bring onto the table. And we all talk and, put it all under the, ambit of, making it their own, allow people to be their own self. Beyond all of those words, it's really about meeting people as they are. And that's just what makes it easy. Obviously, as we, talk through this more, that we will speak about it. And of course, keeping pace with the changing times, I must admit that, it's always important to continue to keep thinking that, what can you do better? And how do you make lives of the other person better? And then it comes very easy, right? Because then, you can get as many ideas and thought processes, and there are tools and learning, all of that you need to apply on. But reality is that, if you are able to make that happen, then it's just wonderful. So I just sort of gave you a sort of a easy answer to it, possibly.
Well, I think you've simplified something very difficult that a lot of people struggle with. So, but if I take your answer there and summarize it to some degree, I think one of the things that points out to me is that, it's not always about knowing all the answers. It's about asking the right questions as well and trying to understand people as they are, which is something I experienced when I was there as well. So I'm glad it's still there. So, part of that is obviously leadership culture in a company, right? And so you talked about, people coming as they are. With the size of the company and the leadership culture being, very important, how do you manage that without losing the personal touch from the top down? I'm always interested to know what's your take on that.
One is really about having a channel of communication open. Consistently having that channel of communication open with people is really, really important to get the grassroots pulse of what's really happening at the business, what's happening with people themselves. And I always say that having a pulse on the ground in terms of how the business is driving, and you know the people strategy is nothing else but a evolution of the business strategy. So having a pulse and the communication on a consistent basis is definitely helpful. The other is really about understanding what are the challenges and the priorities at hand right now. And that keeps changing, as we all understand right now, with so many changes worldwide, and digital transformation at scale, and particularly for us, a technology as an organization, there is so much that's going through, right, with AI and cloud, and all of that, that's completely changing the nature and the face of work. Is being able to keep pace with that. Yes, sir. So it's really about thinking through that, how do we innovate in each of our practices, in each of our processes that we run. Some of the processes that we would be running in the past may not necessarily hold true right now, and having the conviction to be able to then go ahead and make a change to it, and not necessarily stay course onto it. But I wouldn't really propagate a thought process of just making a change for the sake of making a change. It's important to be able to understand that, is it fundamentally solving a business problem? And if it is, therefore, then how do we start to adopt that and put it and implement that at scale for people? And there is, step by step, you go forward with it.
Sounds like relentless prioritization, making sure you focus on the most important things, which I've heard.
Absolutely. And, focus is a very important element, in all of this, because, while we can all have enough and more that we have at hand, extremely critical to be able to agree that what are some of the things that we will do. Equally important is what are some of the things that we will not do moving forward. And, it's so very critical to be able to agree. And I always have been saying that, do few things, but do the few things that the best way, right? And that's where you create an actual impact, and people see the merit out of it. So it's not really about picking up all fancy topics and anything and everything under the sun to be able to make that happen. But it's really about doing a few things, but in those few things you do the best, and that has to actually have a business impact, and that has to have a people impact, and then there is value. I mean, then that's people see merit in it.
Yeah. I really resonate with that. It brings me on to, I think, a very interesting topic around the big challenges of 2025. And before I go there, I actually was reading something earlier today around this gentleman called Dr. Lawrence J. Peter in 1969. He came up with something called the Peter Principle, which basically states that in a hierarchy, people keep getting promoted until they land a job they're not actually competent at. So they keep going up and up, and eventually they land. This was in the 60s, but fast forward to today, and we're in an era where AI, automation, rapid disruption are reshaping the very nature of work. The skills that got leaders to here might not be the ones that take them forward, right? And we know that because now you don't need to be an Excel expert. You just go to ChatGPT, you write in what you need, and it gives you the formula. So, which brings me to a big question about 2025 and the pace of change, which isn't slowing down. So as you look ahead, what do you see as the biggest leadership challenges of 2025? And how do we make sure leaders don't just rise to the level of incompetence, so to speak, but actually evolve to meet the future demand? What's your take on that?
First thing on that one, Yasar, I would call out is adaptability. I think it's really about keeping pace, like I said a little while, uh, is really about keeping pace with the changing times. And it is an inherent leadership trait for leaders to adapt to the changing times. While it may sound as a word, but it's very important because it's really about a personal change for leaders themselves to be able to understand that why they need to go through a change, and are they willing to embrace that in the truest sense, right? So that's one. Paired with that comes the other element, is that for leaders to keep pace with learning. And I have been a big fan of that, like you've called out right now, that you just read about books, and and it's not just about reading. It is just about fundamentally wanting to understand that, look, you want to do better, and therefore anything that's now starting to happen, how do we keep pace with that and learn, whether it is a new habit, whether it is a new skill, whether it is a new subject, it's about interactions with people, and so be it, right? But the willingness to be able to learn as a habit is something absolutely critical moving forward. And then there's a whole bunch of things. It's really about managing the multi-generational workforce that we all are dealing with right now, newer set of teams coming across, a diverse set of teams that we all manage when we manage globally large dispersed teams, and keeping pace with that. So few of those are the top priorities. There is more, of course, very, very clearly the spectrum and speed of adapting to technology, and then executing that and putting it into practice at scale is something of a big element of from a prioritization. And to back that up, the other point around learning that we spoke about is really about upskilling and reskilling at scale for our own teams as well. So those I would call out are the few top, few things that come across to the mind. And there's, of course, more, but, very quickly putting across, those are the few things I would say that, leaders need to definitely adapt with. And the last is really about being true themselves. And, we've all heard about, terminologies about authentic leadership and empathetic leadership and all of that. But how do you genuinely make personal change to showcase that to our own teams, and teams see through that, right? So that's really something that I would call out on the table.
Yeah, yeah. Upskilling at the scale you're doing is no joke. It's very serious stuff, and I commend you for taking on that challenge in your role. We haven't mentioned that the two words that everybody's been talking about. So AI, it's been disrupting every industry, but for talent leaders like yourself and myself, it's really, I would see it as an opportunity, I guess. And I know you, so I would say, what excites you the most about AI in talent development, and what keeps you, I don't know, keeps you worried about it? What keeps you up at night?
I would say I'm more inclined to go on the first one, to say that, what excites me, because I'm frankly not thought about the element of being worried, although there are, I'll come to that one. But if the opportunities are huge, immense, I can genuinely tell you right now that, with all of the work that we do, and a large organization that we are, and, so many others as well, whatever processes that we all run, whatever, practices that we have at our place, there is immense opportunity just using technology, and particularly AI, to absolutely make it hyper personalized. That's one of the big benefits that we can actually put into place as talent leaders. Second is doing it at scale for a diverse audience across, however much as we may try. And, you will know that, Yasser, of, running programs or learning initiatives, running, talent management processes, there is a platform that you can up to reach up to, right? But when you're crossing boundaries, when you're crossing multi-generational workforce, the complexity with the speed, that's only being able to be driven when we are able to adopt technology, and particularly AI, into our programs. There is significant work that we all can do in terms of, integrating the entire suite of talent management processes, and I'm just talking on language that all of us know about, right? Whether it's a performance management, whether it is goals, then linking it across to learning, initiatives, linking it back onto career pathways for people. All of that is absolutely feasible on a personalized basis for that individual. So it's not isolated, fragmented packets of initiatives, but it's really being able to have an integrated point of view. And there is enough and more. I'm not getting into the tools and the vehicle available, but there is enough and more available. But the ability to be able to integrate across processes and make it personalized and do it at scale is something that's a solid benefit from an AI standpoint. And there is, of course, more than that. What I'm worried about, of course, is security. It's really also about usage of the data, right? And it's extremely important, and all organizations have to be able to adapt to that. There's a whole bunch of work that we all have to do still to be able to get our own internal data right and being able to make informed decisions based on what the results are going to come out. Because if we don't have that right, we've all heard about terminologies of garbage in and garbage out, but this is a lot more propounded, because if you've got that wrong, decisions go wrong, and then has implications, far-reaching implications. So that's really a big thing for purely talking about talent impact. The second is, of course, is really about compliance and the use of it, and the access of information across. So those are some top topics of the concern. Having said that, it's extremely important for organizations to apply a responsible AI framework. Most organizations have started to put that into place. I am sure others should definitely do that. Ethical use of AI and truly benefiting out of it. And that's an evolution. I genuinely think it's a long journey ahead for everybody.
There was a ex-Google employee, and he said the reason Google took so long to come to the AI at the same pace as like OpenAI and release Gemini was because they were struggling with the question, do I have the right to answer these questions? Because Google typically, you ask it a question and list out websites. But actually, to give you a concrete answer, does it have the right to do that? And does it have the final answer? And I think that's to put your point about data accuracy. Is it going to be correct? What's the repercussions of that? That's a lot of things we won't think about until the damage is done. And you're absolutely right. You dropped some gems there, Deepak. I think a lot of people there will be thinking about, actually, before I go implement X, Y, and Z, I really need to think about the framework and what's being put into our data in the first place. A lot of what we just spoke about was your perception of 2025, your challenges, what you think. I'd love to deep dive a bit more into you and your mindset. So you've been at the forefront of HR transformation for over 2 decades. How has your leadership philosophy evolved over that time, over the last 2 decades?
I think there are a few things which have completely continued to remain basic and foundational for me, which has just not changed over a period of time. And there are others which have definitely changed. So I would bucket them into 2 categories. One is I'm a firm believer, and I begin by saying that all along that I'm a trust evangelist. I start from a zone of trust unless proven otherwise, and it's really helped me big way, because it just makes life easy for me. Because I look eye to eye with people, and I start from a zone that I trust them, and I continue to work together with them. And that sort of remained my core. I have had my share of difficult moments of proving myself whether that's the right model, but I think I've had the right ones to continue on that. So that's really continued to be with me. The second is really I'm an eternal positivist. Yes, sir. I continue to think about opportunities and solutions. And long back when I started my career, somebody told me that possibly you're a problem solver and a crisis manager. I said, really, is that what I actually am as a person? But what it means is that I find opportunities. And that's really something that has stayed with me and definitely helped me on. The third one, in my style is that, it's a core belief in myself. And I see that with you as well. We will talk about that offline. But, it's really about believing in what I start to do. And that's been a leadership trait I've sort of continued, which has just not changed. And two more, which have just not changed at all, is belief in the team. I'm a strong proponent of the fact that one doesn't do anything alone. Come what may, however much you're read and learned or have experienced. The only way to be able to make things happen and get ahead is to be able to work together with teams. So I have no shame in being able to reach out to people and say what I don't know, and that's something that has absolutely worked with me. And I'm a happiness evangelist. I just believe that it's important to stay happy and healthy, and be in a positive frame of mind. So those are some things that have just not changed, which are, you call it leadership style, or you just call it my personality traits, which has sort of helped me. There are some things that has definitely I have thought through, is really about my ability to make a lot more informed data-based decisions. At point of time in the past, I used to come across from a zone of thinking that, look, I just know people, I can continue to work together with them, same, you know, fundamentals that I've held on to. But I am now a lot more moved forward, and I'm being candid about it, that I today make a lot more informed data-based decisions rather than, listening to people and perception. So that's really been a change, but I think it's for the positive one. The second one, I have definitely changed. And as parts of it, I've always remained calm. Like you began talking about it, that I've always remained calm and composed. But I've put in an element of bias for action, because I realized that while I used to be looking at things on a perfection model mode always in the past, I've realized the benefit of moving fast right now, and I don't necessarily need to look at everything to get done in an absolute perfection manner. I'd rather get things done and then iterate and quickly learn from it and move forward, rather than wait for a full-blown perfection. So that's been an improvement. At point of time in the past, I'd sort of spend time and get it right the first time. I still do, but at the same point of time, I don't necessarily wait for that. And so that's an evolution, and I'm liking that. I think it's a good change that I'm starting to pick up for myself, and I'm glad that I've done so.
From my experience at Wipro, I remember, and I worked there for nearly 6 years, 5.5 years, during 2014 to 2019. And at the time, I always felt like we ran 100 miles per hour. So the fact that you're saying that means a lot, because it's continuous learning, isn't it? It's like that kind of MVP, deliver on that and then iterate and then iterate. It makes complete sense. And I think it's definitely, it needs to be part of any leader's kind of skill sets nowadays. I got a question for you. So if you had to teach a masterclass called the Deepak Parija Leadership Playbook, what would be your first 3 lessons?
I'd first do masterclass on grit and resilience, because I've had my enough and more ups and downs. It looks nice right now, but it's not necessarily has been so. But I've, you know, my belief and resilience is something that I can definitely do. I can't put in the whole bunch of subject around it, but I can give experience-based insights of what's worked. So that's something that I can definitely do a masterclass on. I can do another masterclass for sure about remaining positive and being happy. A lot of people speak to me about the fact that look, it's complex. There are challenges. I don't have empowerment, and I don't have the support ecosystem. Fundamentally, I have always been of the view that it's for you to be able to sort things out, right? And and when you do that, you're in a state of mind that you can make things happen. So you've got to think through that. It doesn't come easy. You got to start to reach out to people. You do your bit of reading. You got to go back and figure out what worked for you in the past and how did you make that happen, and then you bring it back onto practice. So do what you may need to do, but if you're able to bring all of that together, it's really about happiness. Can't really think about a third one. I think this possibly summarizes both of it. Yeah, so making it
You've
difficult
covered
for
a
me.
lot. I think in all your answers, I think you've basically written contents for your entire book, right? um,
Now, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I'm not so good at being anything else. I mean, this is
no,
possibly
no,
one.
no. I think grit is probably the most important. That's one thing I find that in 2025, whether you're a leader or whether you're an associate, mid-level, senior, I think having some grit is something that really drives productivity, self-discipline. It just helps you get on with things. And actually, I think it stops you from worrying.
Yeah,
Worrying is actually one of those things I feel like can be the biggest detriment to people because they worry not in a productive way, but in a negative way, right? It stops them from being
right.
productive.
And I think I can do another one. I just remembered. I think I can do one on team and collaboration, and one team. Because I'm like I said. I just believe in the power of a team and being able to work together across. So I think I can put my thoughts around running how collaboration should work. Again, tools, mechanisms, methodologies aside, but it's fundamentally, I think it's really about coming together. And the start point of that is having a respect for the other person, is listening to them, spending the time to be able to understand and appreciate each other's views, and then coming together to find solutions to a common problem. So I think
Yeah.
I can do that as well.
You've been very reflective in your answers, and I wonder if you were able to go back to day one, Deepak, and give him some advice before stepping into the chief talent officer role, what would it have been? Or what would it be? And we're not talking. How long have you been in your current role? I think it's like nearly 2 years here,
Year and a half, year and a half.
so it's quite some time.
Yeah, I think if I were to just think back, it would have been to pause and reflect a little bit more. I would say it's important to settle down and first understand the details of what one is getting into, and the nuances around it and the complexities around it, and so spending time, do a little bit more on the design, and then go in full hog for the execution is what I would have done. I did start fast on that. Possibly my bias for actions took over, and there is a need and the pressing macro challenges that one had to go through, which is why I just got into it. But now, if I were to reflect back, I think I would have done better to stay put and spend some more time on designing. Not that we've got it wrong. I think I've done a decent one to get that done right now. But if I had an opportunity, I would have spend some more time on the design and then execute. And when you've got that right, then go full speed, no stopping on making that happen.
Last question. So, what's a piece of leadership advice you once received that at the time didn't really make sense or you didn't fully understand, but later turned out to be gold?
It's a simple one, but I think I've held it with me. What got you here will not take you further ahead. And this was one of my one of our past CEOs who told me, saying that, look, Deepak, you've done well, you've come here, but what got you here is not going to what take you further ahead, right? And I think there was deep meaning in that, because at that point of time I thought, I know it, what's there, that because it's worked for me, and so therefore, why is it that it's not going to be helping me forward? But fundamentally, what it meant is that what you've learned, you also got to be able to be willing to unlearn, and adapt to the new. And that's really essentially what it meant. I see a lot of power in that. And over a period of time, I've started to respect that a lot right now.
So it's one I will always remember as well. I think I've heard a variation of that, and it means a lot. We've run out of time, so we will finish up there. A huge thank you, Deepak Parija, for joining us today. What an incredible conversation. We've covered so much. I think I will walk away, and a lot of people listening will walk away with a lot of powerful anecdotes and insights, what it really takes to lead at scale, and also 2025 and beyond. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Yasar. Thank you very much.
No worries. So everybody watching, thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on the Talent Community Podcast, where we will bring you the sharpest minds, boldest ideas, and the conversations that matter. Until then, see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.